Hello and welcome, precious people. I hope your week has been great. Thank God it's Friday. Yay! My name is Nike Ayola and I want to welcome you if this is your first time of joining this channel, and to appreciate you if you're a regular listener. Whichever you may be, please make sure you subscribe to my channel before you leave today if you haven't already done so. And if you are not watching directly from the YouTube platform, maybe because a lovely person forwarded the video to you or sent you a link, please do just one more thing for me. I need you to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. It's actually easy, I promise you, even if you're an internet clocked like I am. Simply click on the YouTube icon on your device and type the title of my channel, Ask Pastor Nike, on the search bar, that space with the little magnifying glass at the end. It will take you directly to my channel. And once you're there, click on subscribe and then the little bell sign beside it that will alert you every time I publish something new. I assure you, in a minute or two, you'll be done. So once again, I want to welcome you to the first Friday in the month of August. And just as the number 8 represents new beginnings, I believe it will be appropriate to move on to a new topic, having spent the last 3 episodes on the subject of abortion. The question for this episode, which is number 27, is: how can I, as a parent, raise a teenage child? Now, I will appreciate it if we all can stay engaged, even if we don't have teenage children. If your kids are young, believe me, by the time you blink a few times, you'll be wondering where all the years went. And if, like me, you have managed to survive that phase of life and your kids are now older, remember that we don't only learn to use, but to assist others as well. So then, like I normally will do, I want to read the entire question exactly how it was sent to me, and this is it. I like to know how to cope with teenage children. My son just clocked 13, and I'm beginning to realize it's another stage of life for me as a parent. He at times wants to stay back in school to watch football, go visit a friend, and so on. How do I manage him? Now, I particularly needed to read the entire question because a certain phrase caught my attention when I got the text. This parent said, "It's another stage of life for me as a parent," and she's quite right. But one thing I always emphasize to parents is the need to focus on the child more than we focus on ourselves. No doubt that our parenting style will have to be modified as our kids grow, but it is even more important for us to become keenly aware of the changes that our children are trying to understand and manage about themselves as they enter their teenage years. What I'm saying in essence is, parents need to be aware that it's another stage of life for their teenagers much more than it is for them, the parents. For the teenager, it's a time of discovery, a time of self-awareness. It's a period of raging hormones and consciousness of sexuality. It's a time of making choices, some of which may carry lifelong consequences. It's a time of experimenting and questioning, when it is normal for them to question the things that we have taught them, including their faith. We have to come to terms with what they may be going through and still be able to lead them in the path that they should go. Now, before I go on to the specifics of what parents of teenagers can do, I'd like to start with 2 things that I believe all of us may find useful. Now, the first will be a little insight into what the world of a teenager of today truly looks like. And the second, a model of how we can transition from one age bracket to another when raising our children. To give us a somewhat right perspective, I want to share something that I pulled from a devotional that we are currently using in my church. That is the Porch, Jessup, Maryland, that aptly conveys what today's world is like. I've tried to reframe and rearrange some of the sentences, and I've added some of my own thoughts as well. So this is what it says. In the past 2 generations, and a biblical generation is 40 years, tolerance as a movement has swept all over the world. It continues to barge its way into our school systems and strongholds of entertainment, like social media, television, entertainment, and sports industries, brainwashing our kids and our culture to accept his message that 1, everything is relative, 2, all truth is equal, 3, there are no absolutes, and there is no moral standard. It's a camouflage way of saying, get out of my life. I don't want your opinion because I want to do things my own way. It's a shaking of the fist at authority figures and an assertion of acting out their own will without regard or question concerning what is right and wrong. Tolerance, which leads to apathy eventually, is the idea that somehow we, the parents, will be okay with our kids destroying their lives by throwing prudent restraint to the wind and doing whatever they please. That's what it says. Now, this is the world our children live in, where the voice of discipline is gradually being silenced and being politically correct is valued above the truth. In the midst of all of this, we must equip ourselves as parents so we can meet the challenges that are thrown at us headlong and secure our children's futures. The second thing I'll be talking about is the CTM model for mentoring. And with permission from the author, that's my family's pastor of many years, Reverend Tony Akinyemi of the Shepherd's Flock International, I'll be tweaking it a little bit to illustrate how we need to transition in our methods of raising our kids as they grow. CTM is an acronym which means C, command, T, teach, and M, model, CTM. For command, this means that from birth and probably until your child is a preschooler, you lead them by command. Now, at this stage, they are young and they don't know what is best for them. So, you set the boundaries for them and enforce those boundaries that you set. Some people refer to this as authoritarian style of parenting, and rightly so. You, the parent, lay down the rules and instructions. That is C for command. T is for teach. By the time your child hits elementary or primary school age, you know that their favorite word is why. At this stage, they may demand an explanation for almost everything, and they want to know the how and why of any demand that you make of them. Remember, they are becoming more aware of the world out there as they encounter other children. They are now going to school. This is the time to switch to teaching them. Now you are imparting knowledge and giving explanations for their whys. At this stage, it doesn't mean command is abandoned, no. But you have to start giving them some of the reasons for your expectations and instructions. Because mommy said so or daddy said so will no longer be satisfying in every scenario. And M is for model. By the time our kids enter their teenage years, they are emerging adults. And at least we can't deny what nature is telling them by the physical and psychological changes that they begin to experience in themselves. As parents, we must be prepared to transition into modeling the lifestyle we want them to embrace at this stage, because now we lead them by influence and not by command. It is no longer teach me, but show me. What we say and how we say it becomes less important than what they see us do. And we lead by example and continue to teach them as well. And now we have to be on top of our games, probably researching some more, because they now have several influencers and teachers as well. Now, having said all that, I want to give us some specific steps that we can take as parents of teenagers to guide them and probably arm them with the life skills that they need for the best futures that we desire for them. Number one, and this impacts on every other suggestion that I will be making. You have to know your child. As human beings, we're all different. And there are no blanket treatments for all children, even if they are twins. Let us look at Genesis 25 and verse 27 again from the New Living Translation. And it says, "As the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter. He was an outdoors man. But Jacob had a quiet temperament, preferring to stay at home." So here we see a set of twins with completely different temperaments. And it's important to know our kids for two major reasons, in my opinion. A, because as the parent, you'll know how to specifically deal with your child. For example, if your child is quiet, laid back, or nerdy, or if he or she is boisterous, outgoing, or expressive, you will know what to expect and how to tailor modeling the life you want them to emulate to suit their individual personalities. And B, because you will be able to quickly detect if there is a problem and offer quick intervention. For example, when a normally outgoing child suddenly becomes withdrawn, it's a red flag and you need to immediately find out what is going on so you can help him or her. That is number one, know your child. Number two is, after knowing your child, you also need to get to know the world that your child is living in. And parents, we have to make all the effort here. As parents, we probably won't fit into their world per se, but it's our responsibility to try to understand what is going on, who their influencers are, and why they find them appealing. In chapter 18 of my book, From Princess to King, where I try to debunk some of the myths about parenting, I talk about the fact that our children's God contacts and achievements will be greater than ours. So maybe we parents can consider, for example, that some of those worship songs that we write off, in favor of our own old-time generation choruses actually carry greater spiritual weight. For example, a parent who is still only singing choruses like "I love that man of Galilee" today will probably find out that they can't connect with their children on some levels. And I believe the Spirit of God will have parents who may be in such situations know that liking and enjoying some of these newer songs and styles of worship of your kids makes you in no way disloyal or disappointing to God. He's after all the God of all flesh, not only the God of your generation. Number 3, now that your parenting style is changing, you will have to set new boundaries and give them new responsibilities and consequences. I'm talking about your teenagers. For example, coffee hours can be reviewed or new and additional chores may be assigned. But you have to communicate this clearly to the child, especially the consequences. And like we've always heard, never ever set boundaries that you are not going to enforce. It is always counterproductive. Number 4, focus on cultivating character. And pages 186 to 190 of my book, From Princess to King, talks about this in greater detail. Let me give a few examples here, and I think that will help us. First, you should teach them about giving back. They can volunteer on the weekends with some non-profit or NGO groups, some religious organizations, and so on. Second, let them do internships with companies that align with their natural interests, especially during vacations, or arm them with extra skills by making them learn a trade. Expose them to extracurricular activities, music, sports, drama, coding, and so on and so forth. Third, cooking and housekeeping are survival skills in our current world, so teach them, especially the boys. Teach them these skills. It will benefit them on the short and the long run. You can also help them to choose a mentor and give the mentor access to your kids. And again, teach them financial responsibility. Don't do everything for your children. Number 5, be very involved in the process of choosing their friends. Let me refer you to episode 16 of this channel, where I talked about healthy and unhealthy relationships among children. And then chapter 16, that is page 196 of my book, where I've dealt extensively with this topic. Dealing with peer pressure for teenagers is a humongous problem, and friendship plays a key role in this. Once again, chapter 16 of my book talks about teaching our children refusal skills, and this is absolutely necessary in the world that they are living in today. You can please refer to pages 197 to 200, where you will find more information about what refusal skill is and how to help your kid hone this skill. Number 6, I spoke about tolerance and apathy at the beginning, but parents who plan to live in peace in the future cannot afford to disengage or be aloof where their child's well-being is concerned. You have to stay engaged in their business. And I imagine that you may have to do it discreetly at times, but you absolutely must remain in their lives and be involved. Teenage children very often want to be left alone, so what you do is hold them loosely but firmly. I know it sounds like a paradox, but that's what parents must learn to do. And finally, number 7 is to do your best and also expect the best of them. Quite often we worry incessantly and unnecessarily. There will always be things and situations that are outside our control, even for our own lives, not to talk of other people's lives. But nothing is outside God's control. And even though I know it has become a cliche, it is still the truth that prayer is the key that opens all doors. We must never fail to pray for and over our children. My first book, Don't Ruin Their Lives, and part 3 of my latest book, From Princess to King, are 2 great resources that I can recommend for all parents, and even for parents of adult children. And the link for how you can get copies will be displayed on the screen now. See you again next Friday, and until then, Shalom.